Okay, so we are adding and subtracting rational expressions. Okay, so what that means, yesterday or Friday we were multiplying and dividing, yes? Okay, but now we're adding and subtracting. The big difference is that you have to have a common denominator when you add or subtract, yes? So we have to find our least common denominator. Technically, y'all, if you don't find the least common denominator and you just find a common denominator, will it still work? Yes, you'll just have more to simplify. Am I going to take off points if it's not the least common denominator? No. As long as the work's right and you simplified it back, I'm happy. Yes? Okay, so knowing that, if they already match, isn't that your least common denominator? Yes, so on this one, x is my least common denominator. And knowing that, once my denominators match, I can rewrite it with a common denominator. And I have 2 minus 5. Well, what is 2 minus 5? What kind of 3? Does negative 3 over x simplify? No, so there's your answer. Okay, that one was super simple. Are they all going to be like that? No, I'm sorry. Okay, look at example 2. Does the denominator match? Yes. Okay, it's the same thing. However, we're still going to factor it because after we add or subtract, if it can simplify, we're going to simplify. Does that make sense? So we always want a factored numerator and a factored denominator. So I'm going to go ahead and factor our denominator. Now, the nice thing is because it matches, we only have to factor it once, right? Yeah. So a is 1, b is 1, c is negative 6. So a is 1x, a times c is negative 6, b is 1. What multiplies to give me negative 6 and adds to give me positive 1? Yeah, positive 3, negative 2. So my denominator, I always cross it out so it doesn't look like I have all this crazy stuff, is x plus 3, x minus 2. Now, because they already match, do I need to change anything? No, because they already match. But I do have to simplify the numerators. When they match, I can just combine, right? But what symbol do I have in the middle? Subtraction. Now, this is where the most mistakes are made with this unit, is that when there's subtraction, you have to bring it up, okay, and not forget about it. But you also have to subtract. It's subtracting this whole fraction, right? So you have to give it to both terms in the numerator. So I'm going to rewrite. I don't want to rewrite this whole fraction a million times, so I deal with my denominator, deal with my numerator, and then I'll put it back together. Yes? So we're going to look, it's 3 minus x plus 6. Because I don't want to write this as a fraction a bunch of times. Now I have to distribute my negative. So I get 3 minus x minus 6. And what are my like terms? 3 and 6. What's 3 minus 6? Yeah, so I'm going to bring down my negative x, and that gives me negative 3. Now, once we have it simplified, we have to factor it if possible. Now, there's no GCF here, but what do I have at the beginning? A negative. And when I have a negative at the beginning, what do I want to do with that negative? Take it out, right? So I'm going to take it out, and it makes everything opposite. So what's the opposite of negative x? And what's the opposite of negative 3? Plus 3. So this is my numerator. So I'm going to rewrite it. Now that it's fully simplified and factored, I have negative parentheses x plus 3, and then bring down my LCD, or my common denominator, x plus 3, x minus 2. Does this simplify now? Yes. What cancels? The x plus 3. And what am I left with? Well, I have a negative on top, but where is the x minus 2? And where does it have to stay? On the bottom. Now, because it's alone, you don't have to put the parentheses. Now, is this okay, or what do I need to do? I need to put a 1. Remember, anything something cancels, that equals 1, so I'm not changing anything, but I can't just leave a negative by itself. So this is my answer. Any questions with this one? Okay, so let's look at example 3. What do you think my LCD is going to be, my least common denominator? We have 5 and 4. Remember, to create a common denominator, you have to multiply. So it's going to always be the same or bigger than your biggest number. Can 4 turn into 5? No. So what else can they both turn into? 20. Okay, now, this doesn't always give you your least common denominator, but it will always give you a common denominator. You can multiply them by each other. Well, what's 5 times 4? 20. In this case, it is the least common denominator, so it's fine. But that will always give you a common denominator, and it will always work if you can't figure it out. Does that make sense? Okay. So 5 times what gives you 20? 4. Whatever I do to the bottom, I have to do to the top because that's what keeps it equal. Because, y'all, what's 4 divided by 4? 1. So technically we're multiplying by 1, which doesn't change anything. So, yes, we're changing it, but if we simplified it, it'd be the same. What do we need to multiply this side by to create 20? 5. So times 5 times 5. Now, 4 times 5 is 20. 5 times 4 is 20. So my denominator is good. Yes? So now I'm going to focus just on my numerator. So I'm going to rewrite this and bring it down. So I have 4 parentheses x plus 2 minus 5 parentheses x minus 2. And now I'm going to simplify my numerator. Okay? So what am I going to do? Distribute, multiply. So what's 4 times x? 4 times 2? Now, am I distributing just 5 or negative 5? Negative 5. Which is 2 birds, 1 stone, because I had the negative to distribute and the 5, so we're just going to do both together. So negative 5 times x is negative 5x. What's negative 5 times negative 2? Positive or negative? 2 negatives makes a positive. So I'm going to keep simplifying. What do I do next? Yeah, I'm going to combine my like terms. So what's 4x minus 5x? Negative x. And what's 8 plus 10? And then we factor. Well, what's the only thing I can do here? Take out the negative, right? So when I take out that negative, it's just opposite, opposite. So positive, negative. And then we bring it up. And bring down our denominator. Does anything simplify? So that's my answer. So it's the same process every time. Create a common denominator, okay? Then you're going to simplify the numerator, factor the numerator, simplify again if possible, okay? Every single time. So let's look at the bottom right, or the number 4. I want you to try this one while I take attendance really fast before I forget. I put it back there. It's in the hanging folder. Okay, so what's my LCD? 15 AC. So 5 times 3 is 15, and that is the least common denominator, even though we multiplied them together. Do they both already have an A? Yeah. Yes. So there's nothing fancy you do with that. You don't have to do A twice. Just because they both already have it, don't make it harder. Yes? Now this one has a C. It doesn't simplify, so this one needs a C, so it's gonna have, they're both going to have a C. Now, what do I multiply 5AC by to create 15AC? 3. So what I do to the bottom, I have to do the top. And what am I going to multiply 3A by to create 15AC? 5 what? C. Now, 3 times 5AC is 15AC. 3A times 5C is 15AC. So our denominator is good. And now we focus on our numerator. So when I bring that down, I have 3 times 2x plus 4y times 5c. What's 3 times 2x? 6x plus 4y times 5c is 20cy. Remember, we write our letters alphabetical. Now, 2 things wrong with this. Is it in order? No, this has 2 letters, that only has 1. So we're going to flip-flop it really fast. And now, can I factor it? Does it have a GCF? Nothing's squared, so I know I'm not going to like snowflake or perfect square or anything like that. But I can do math right 9 if we're unsure about a GCF. And do 20, 6, and 2 is my GCF. So we're going to take out 2. Divide by 2, divide by 2, and that leaves me with 10cy plus 3x. So now we rewrite it. 2 parentheses 10cy plus 3x over 15ac. Does it simplify? Does 2 over 15 simplify? No, so this is my answer. But I'm going to ask you something. What if I'm doing it in a different color because I don't want you to think it's like the same problem. I'm changing it, making up my own numbers, yes? So what if I had 2 parentheses 10cy plus 3x over 16ac? Does that simplify? Does 2 over 16 simplify? So would I have to simplify it for my answer? Yes. So what this would become is 10cy plus 3x over 8ac. Does that make sense? So just know that if it simplifies, you do have to simplify it. Okay? Cool. Okay, let's look at example 5. What's wrong with the bottom left? Is it in order? No, so I want you to put it in order. I want you to try really fast. Okay, so when you put it in order, what do you get? Be careful. What's negative? Yeah, so you get negative 2x plus 1 because that's a positive 1 in front. Now, what's wrong with that? We have to take out that negative, and when we do, it becomes opposite. So it becomes positive 2x minus 1. So what matches? Do they match 100%? No, but what, most of it matches, right? They both have 2x minus 1. But what does one of them have that the other one doesn't have? A negative. So I can't take that negative away. I don't have anything to cancel that negative on this side. But can I just give this one a negative? As long as I do it to the top, it's fine. So my LCD is negative parentheses 2x minus 1. And now I'm going to simplify the numerator. So I have 6. What symbol do I have in the middle? Minus, and then I have negative 4. Well, what happens with that? Yeah, it's a broken plus sign. So it ends up being 6 plus 4, which is what? 10. So my answer is 10 over negative parentheses 2x minus 1. Does it simplify? No. Now we're not going to do number 7, so don't stress about that one. But we are going to do number 6. And I'm going to give you a forewarning. It is a lot, and you're going to be annoyed, but there's not like, I think there may be 1 or 2 of them on your practice, so don't overstress it. But you do need to see it, okay? So let's look at example 6. Do the denominators match? Do we know if they match? Well, one of them is factored and the other one's not. So we don't know if they match, right? So we need to find out. And we need to find out by factoring, correct? So I'm going to factor this guy. So I'm going to come down to the bottom so I have plenty of space. And I know A is 1, B is negative 2, and C is negative 3. So A times C, 1 times negative 3 is negative 3. And A is 1, so 1x, 1x. What multiplies to give you negative 3 and adds to give you negative 2? Well, what multiplies to give you 3 at all? The only thing. Yeah, 1 and 3. So which one has to be negative to add to a negative 2? The bigger one, yeah. Because 1 times negative 3 is negative 3. 1 plus negative 3, or 1 minus 3, is negative 2. So this works. So my factors here are x plus 1, x minus 3. Do they match? So I'm going to come back up for my factoring. Do they match? No. Does any part of it match? Yes. What part of it matches? The x plus 1. So we know that part of our LCD is x plus 1. Now, this has an x minus 3, and I can't simplify that x minus 3, so that means I have to give that x minus 3 here, because if this one's stuck with it, this one needs it, so we can combine them, right? So the only way to give it is by multiplying, so x minus 3, so that's part of my LCD. So now they both have x minus 3, and what I do to the bottom, I also did to the top, so it's still equal. Now, do the denominators match fully? No, what's wrong? Yes. Because this one had x minus 3 and this one didn't. And we're trying to make them match. So remember, this was the original on this side, this is the original on this side. And for us to combine the tops and simplify, we have to match the denominators. So since they didn't match, we're trying to make them match. So now they both have x minus 3 and x plus 1, but what does this one have now that's creating them to not match still? The x minus 2. So this one needs x minus 2. What I do to the bottom, I have to do to the top. Now, do they match fully? Yes. Do they have the same 3 factors? Yes. So is our denominator good? Yes. We don't want to multiply it because that defeats the whole purpose. We want it factored, and it's factored. Yes? So we're leaving the denominator alone. So our goal now is to simplify our numerator, right? So I'm going to rewrite my numerator and simplify it. So I have x minus 2, 7x minus 1. I have a minus in the middle, 6x times x minus 3. Now, what sucks is we are double distributing here because this is a binomial times a binomial. So x times 7x is 7x squared. X times negative 1 is negative 1x. Negative 2 times 7x is negative 14x. And negative 2 times negative 1 is what? Positive 2, right? So we're done double distributing. Now, we're not going to combine like terms yet, y'all, because we're going to do as little bit of steps as possible. So let's continue multiplying before we try to combine like terms. So what's negative 6x times x? Negative 6x squared, because negative 6x twice. And then negative 6x times negative 3. Well, 2 negatives makes a, so positive 18, and then x only one time. So now we're done multiplying. And now we're going to combine like terms. So I have a x squared here. Are there any other x squareds?
Yes.
Yeah, so what's 7 minus 6? So I have 1x squared or just x squared. Then I have this negative 1 minus 14 plus 18. If you don't want to do math in your head, you can use your handy dandy calculator. However, don't type the x. Okay, because we're not including this guy, we consider that a negative 1 minus 14 plus 18. And it gives us positive 3. And then what's left? What did we not use? The plus 2, which had no like term, so it's just 2. Now, every single time, 1 through 5, or 2 through 5, 1 was pretty simple. We didn't have to factor anything. Every single time we were done simplifying the numerator, didn't we factor it? What's the only way to factor a trinomial?
Snowflake.
So do we have to snowflake it again? Yes. Is that gross? Yes. But it is what it is. We have to do what we have to do. Okay, so we snowflake it. And A is 1x. 1x. B is 3. And A times C is 2. And what's the only thing that multiplies to give you 2? I have him next period. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So the only thing that multiplies to give you 2 is 1 times 2. Does 1 plus 2, 3?
Wait.
Yes. So, sorry, I'm reading this pass. Okay, so this becomes x plus 1, x plus 2. Now we write it as a fraction. We're almost done. So we rewrite it, x plus 1, x plus 2, over our denominator. And what cancels, if anything? The x plus 1. What about the x minus 2, x plus 2? No, because they're not the same. Plus 2 and minus 2 are not the same thing, so there's my answer. So I know that one was gross, but I want you to realize that one was like worst case scenario, the most work possible. Okay? So there's your answer. Any questions here? Okay, so you are working on your practice